Hello again. Today we are going to be looking at our next Psalm of Ascent, which is Psalm 129. Greatly have they afflicted me from my youth, let Israel now say. Greatly have they afflicted me from my youth, yet they have not prevailed against me. The plowers plowed upon my back, they made long their furrows. The Lord is righteous. He has cut the cords of the wicked. May all who hate Zion be put to shame and turned backward. Let them be like the grass on the housetop, which withers before it grows up, with which the reaper does not fill his hand, nor the binder of sheaves his arms. Nor do those who pass by say, "The blessing of the Lord be upon you. We bless you in the name of the Lord." Friends, if there's one thing I hope you're really starting to see in these Psalms of Ascent, it is that they do not back away from the reality of life. The Psalms of Ascent kind of stare directly into the difficulties of life in all their different facets. This Psalm of Ascent really deals with oppression, the oppression that people can often feel within the Christian faith. It deals with, in a sense, persecution. It could be persecution from other people, the way we often term it, or kind of oppression or persecution within our own spirit or from the evil one himself. But this psalm is really a call to perseverance. And it's a call to perseverance because really this is what we have always seen throughout the history of the Christian faith. That the Christian faith is not like an annual plant which withers and dies as the winter storms come upon it. But the Christian faith is like a hardy perennial which comes back after seasons of oppression and persecution, stronger and bigger than ever. Eugene Peterson writes this. He says, "Do you think of the Christian faith as a fragile style of life that can flourish only when weather conditions are just right? Or do you see it as a tough perennial that can stick it out through the winter and drought, surviving the trampling of careless feet and the attack of vandals? We remember the way it was with Jesus. His ministry began with 40 days of temptation in the desert and concluded with that never to be forgotten night of testing and trial in Gethsemane and Jerusalem." The imagery that is used in this psalm is a person who is being stretched out and another person who is really tearing up their back, as a person who is plowing a field tears up that field. It's incredibly kind of visceral imagery of oppression or even of torture and persecution. It's a person whose life is just being stripped and laid laid open and turned upside down. But of course, what is the answer to this? Why is it that this person who is undergoing this excruciating oppression, how is it that they can persevere? Well, as the psalm says, but the Lord is righteous. And that word righteous can also really be translated as faithful. Eugene Peterson in the Message says, but the Lord sticks with us. So when we think about the Lord's righteousness, what we are really thinking about and talking about is how the Lord is always righteous to us. So often within our Christian faith, we look simply to our own maybe righteousness, to our own trying to measure up. But where the psalmist is looking in his time of oppression and persecution is he is keeping his eyes fixed on God, as God keeps his eyes fixed on us. Again, Peterson writes in his book, Along Obedience in the Same Direction. Let me find it a sec. He says, God sticks to his relationship. He establishes a personal relationship with us and stays with us. The central reality for Christians is the personal, unalterable, persevering commitment that God makes to us. Perseverance is not a result of our determination. It is a result of God's faithfulness. We survive in the way of faith not because we have extraordinary stamina, but because God is righteous, because God sticks with us. Christian discipleship is a process of paying more and more attention to God's righteousness and less attention to our own, finding the meaning of our lives not by probing our moods and motives and morals, but by believing in God's will and purposes, making a map of the faithfulness of God, not charting the rise and fall of our enthusiasms. It is out of such a reality that we acquire perseverance, keeping our eyes focused on God. Now, of course, the second half of this psalm, we might read and wince a little bit, because clearly the psalmist becomes a little bit vindictive. Vindictive against those who have been oppressing them, vindictive of those who are kind of creating unjust, who are acting in unjust ways towards the person of faith. But this again is where the Psalms of Ascent are so beautiful, because they also don't shy away against our own maybe inner darkness, the place where we transgress God's command to love our neighbor as ourselves. But the Psalms of Ascent really name it as it is. Again, Peterson writes, we must admit the authenticity of the Psalms. For who does not experience flashes of anger at those who make our way hard and difficult? There are times in the long obedience of Christian discipleship when we get tired and fatigued, and this draws out our short temper. So we will not make excuses for the psalmist's vindictiveness. What we will do is we will admire its energy, for it is apathetic, sluggish neutrality that is the death of perseverance. It acts like a virus in the bloodstream and prevents our muscles from developing. And so here, the Psalms are not sung by perfect pilgrims. The pilgrims of old made their mistakes just as we make ours. Perseverance does not mean perfection. For perseverance does not mean perfection. Sorry about that. But again, in that, we are turned back again to the previous line. But the Lord is righteous. We may not be righteous when we're undergoing oppression or opposition. We may want to lash out. We may even become vindictive towards those. We might not follow Jesus' command to love our enemies and to pray for those who persecute us. But God is righteous. And in keeping our eyes focused on his righteousness, on his faithfulness to us, we are then given the strength to endure that which we go through, to continue to persevere on our pilgrim walk with him. Blessings to you.